and absolutely covers and ticks every box in terms of how the victims and survivors of this terrible debacle should be dealt with, and indeed how we try to get at the truth. And I note with interest the reference to South Africa, Chile, Australia and Canada. I was thinking about what are we talking about here, and what we're actually talking about here when we compare them to those 4 states. We're talking about states who secretly carried out butchery and cruelty and genocide on a whole set of generations of people. And indeed the same kind of description could be applied to the mother and baby homes from the information that we have of now. And we do have to get at the truth. But I would make this point, that in the case of South Africa under apartheid and Chile under Pinochet, and indeed the treatment of the Native Americans in Canada and Australia, the Truth Commissions looked at something that had ended, that was over. I don't believe that in the case of Ireland, the abuses of the Church and State against people on the basis of control by religious and the hierarchy of the Catholic Church is over. I think it is still being maintained, and I think that we need to do more than what Sinn Féin are suggesting. I back their motion fully, but I want to amend it to say that what we say matters, but what we actually do matters even more. And to that end, I want to echo calls already made by Micheál Martin and indeed by Simon Harris and indeed by myself previously, which is that the religious orders who dominated this state and who still dominate the health and education service of this state need to be called in. And my amendment is calling for 3 steps to be taken. And note that all necessary steps are being called for, not to break the law, but for the government to take all necessary steps. Number 1, to rescind the so-called Woods deal, which indemnified all of the church and religious orders back in 2002. The Congressional Indemnity Agreement, I believe, is the official title. Number 2, to take all the necessary steps to take into public ownership hospitals that are controlled by religious orders, including the Bon Secours, which is private, all of St Vincent's and all of the Mater Hospital, which were referred to by the ministers I mentioned before. And number 3, to begin the process of the separation of church and state finally in this country by removing the control of religious orders over the boards of management of our schools and hospitals. 95% of our national schools are controlled by religious orders, and a report in one of the papers yesterday shows that between 6 of the Dublin hospitals controlled by religious orders, there's a wealth of about 1 billion. And we all know how little the Church paid back in terms of retribution for the abuse. So if we really want to make it up to, or to honour the legacy of those mothers and babies and the terrible crimes that were committed against them, then I think we have to begin to unravel where those crimes stem from and to start pulling it up root and branch, and therefore make a huge commitment to the separation of church and state. And that's the amendment I'd like to put to a motion that I think is well thought out and deserves to be considered, rather than the sort of motion from yourself, Minister, which says leave it alone, wait till the Commission reports. It's a bit like telling me when I put a bill on the 14-year sentence on abortion, don't change the law on abortion until we hear back from the Citizens' Assembly. But things can be done in tandem rather than leave.
Deputy Catherine Connolly, please.
Corla, and I want